Assalamu alaikum. Kitab Tawheed, the chapter entitled Ma Ja'a fi Ruqa wa Tamaim. Ruqa is like a prayer. Ruqya is the singular. Ruqa is the plural. And then Tamaim, you're going to find out what that is. It's another one of those forbidden things people tie on animals or children or themselves and think it's defending them from evil or from, say, the Ain or from something that they believe in, which is not Allah. And the more you don't believe in Allah alone and His mighty powers only, the more you're going to be tied into this stuff. And most of the world is tied into it even now. I had mentioned that to you before. Most of Africa, most of China. Let's say most of humanity. It used to be not around when I was a kid, but my last lesson I told you about the gypsy. But, you know, it's come back now with the palm reading and the tea leaves reading and the, you know, the Arabic coffee. When you drink it, it's like mud, and then they tip it upside down and they read things in that mud left over from your cup. I digress, but I don't really digress because it is still here. Things like this. So we'll try to get this done in less than a half an hour, inshallah. He begins by saying, Fi Sahih, that means the hadith, an Abi Bashir al-Ansari, radiyallahu anhu. أنه كان مع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم في بعض أسفاره فأرسل رسولا. So they were on a trip, asfar, one trip they were on, and a messenger came and said, أن لا يبقين في ركبه بعيرا قلاءد من وتر أو من كلادة إلا قتيت. Prophet Muhammad never left one of these things on an animal other than he cut it off. What things? Now we're going to tell you what things they are. لم يذكر المؤلف أن هذا الباب من الشرك. The author didn't say this is shirk. لأن الحكم فيه يختلف عن حكم لبس الحلقة والخيط. He's saying it's not like I told you before when I told you about the previous two things which we did, the bracelet and the string. ولهذا جزم المؤلف في الباب الأول أنها من شرك بدون استثناء. He said, I've already told you that this is shirk without exception. أما هذا الباب is for this bab, this chapter. فلم يذكر أنها شرك. It's not shirk, I didn't say that. لأن من الرقى ما ليس بشرك. Some رقى, which means small prayers, are not shirk. ولهذا قال باب ما جاء من الرقى وتماءم. What does this mean? What does this mean, تماءم? Now he's going to explain. رقى جمع رقية. It's the plural of the singular رقية. وهي القراءة, something that you read. فقال رقى لي. It is said he made it on someone, bil alif, min al-qara'a. He read something on him. Waraqa alayhi bil ya means a saud. So this is grammar. It's not important now. Qawlu tama'im. And what is tama'im that he previously mentioned? Jama tamima was sumiyat tamima li'annaha yarawna annahu yuqam biha dafal ayn. It's something they do to keep away the evil eye. Qawlu asfara means he was traveling. As-safar mufarika mahal al-iqama. So when you say safar, it means you leave the place that you stay in. Wasumiya safaran li amrain. Two reasons to call it safar. Al-awwal hissi wa thani ma'nawi. So hissi would mean, as we might say in English grammar, figurative. And manawi is literal. We have some parallels, comparisons with English and Arabic grammar. And they're the same comparisons, actually, with different terms, with different terminology. So let's go to the first one, the hissi. وهو أنه يصفر ويظهر في البلد. He's going to appear in another place that he's not actually staying in. Because خروج, he left min al-bunyan. He left the settled area. And then the next one, the ma'nawi, وهي أنه يصفر عن أخلاق الرجال. He's moving away from certain things that men do. أي يكشف عنها وكثير الناس لا تعرف أخلاقهم وعاداتهم وتبعهم إلا بالأسفار. He's saying that most people don't know themselves except through travel. That is quite true. Isn't that deep? It is true. And once you travel around, you know more about who you are, right? قوله قلادة من وتر أو قلادة. What does it mean, the قلادة? It's from animal hair. It comes from الشق من الراوي والأولى أرجع لأنه قلاعد كانت تتخذ من أوتار. You know what أوتار would mean? Like a string which is spun or twisted from animal hair or maybe animal fat, or they did a lot of things with the animals because they didn't have much, they were just innovative. ويعتقدون أن ذلك يدفع العين عن البعير. بعير means an animal. So they felt that this would defend their animal from an evil eye or maybe getting stolen or something like that. They would put this qala'ada on the animal made from something made from an animal. And then he said, هذا اعتقاد فاسد. This is totally corrupted and wrong. لأنه تؤلق بما ليس بسبب. You're hanging it on the animal without any good reason. وقد سبق, previously we mentioned, I don't think I need these, but sometimes I do. Oh, pray for my eyes, please, all my listeners. أن تعلق بما ليس بسبب شرعي أو حسي شرك. He's saying if you don't have a reason, whether it be a literal reason or a figurative reason, don't do it. This is shirk. لأنه بتعلق إثبات للأشياء سببا لم يثبت به الله لا شرعا ولا قدرا. Okay, he's saying if you can't prove your point either from the Sharia or you're going to say it has to do with qadar, then just don't do it because you're wasting your time and you're going around hanging things on all these babies and children and animals without any good reason. Okay. Yeah, again, he's going over the same thing with the same, he's saying it's i'tiqad fasid. It is a corrupted belief system, so don't do it. Now, he's speaking about the ruqya for the animal, the ba'ir. Ba'ir is an animal. ذكر البعير لأنه هذا هو الذي كان منتشرا حينئذ, because they had a lot of animals around at that time. فهذا القيد بناء على واقع عندهم. So they're thinking that this is the best thing that they can use to do what they need done. فيكون تمثيل وليس بمخصص. That's not important. يستفاد عن الحديث. What do we get from this hadith? Caution. أنه ينبغي لكبير القوم أن يكونوا مرعيها لأهوالهم. The leader of the people must be aware of what's going on among them. فيعتقدهم وينظر في أهوالهم. He has to warn them. Secondly, أنه يجب عليه رعايتهم. He has to steer them in the right direction. بما تقتضي الشرعية, according to Islamic law. فإذا فعلوا, and if they do it, محرما منعهم منه. So if they're going to do something haram, he's going to stop them. and prevent them from doing this. Yeah, try that with, all right, try that with any humans. You know, I don't know. There should be a limit as to what the government can do with people, I believe. Can you stop them from haram? Not really. They'll go do it behind your back. So remember now, this is a publication by a Saudi sheikh who is from Saudi Arabia. That's enough said. Okay. And number 2. أنه لا يجوز أن تؤلق في أعناق الإبل أشياء تجعل سببا في جلب المنفعة. Don't hang anything on a camel, specifically a camel, to think it's going to get you more milk from that camel. Or to think that it's going to dafa mudira. It's going to push harm away from the camel. وهي ليس كذلك لا شرعا ولا قدرا. It's not true, either in Islamic law or in anything having to do with qadr. لأنه شرك. It's shirk. ولا يلزم أن تكونوا قلعدة. It doesn't matter if it's on his riqab or on his neck, on his leg. It doesn't matter. Just don't put things on camels. Yeah, he's saying ليس مكان وداها, because فالمكان لا يؤثر. He's saying there's no effect by putting things on any part of this camel. أنه يجب على من يستطيع تغيير المنكر بيد أو بغير يده. See, this is a very big difference of what goes on in countries. Prophet Muhammad said a hadith where if you see something munkar, change it if you can with your hand. And if you can't, with your words. And if you can't, just hate it in your heart. That's the least you can do if you're a believer. Well, I wouldn't try changing anything with my hand if I were you, because the government will stop you. Did you ever hear of Carrie Nation? That was her nickname. There was something that happened in Prohibition days in America where a couple of housewives got pretty upset that the husbands were out drinking all night long. And of course, fooling around with other women, because that goes along with drinking. They both go together. So if your husband's missing in action and he's out at a bar, you can expect what's going to happen. So these women took it upon themselves to get axes and just go and chop down the bars. I'm going to do this in my History Channel because this is fantastic. They got away with it for a while until they didn't, but angry housewives. You know, I also read something in India. This was when it was in Egypt about 10 years ago. Indian women were angry that their husbands weren't coming home. And when they did come home, all they would do is watch TV and then fall asleep in front of the TV. So what did the Indian housewives do? This is true, happened. They ganged up together and they made a secret plan that on the code word, ready, set, go, one night, when most of the husbands were home sleeping in front of the TV, they threw all the TVs out the window in all the homes, and it made an astounding crash on the ground. Look that up, because I'm sure I read that when I was in Cairo. I was laughing. I said, okay, now you don't have a TV. I digress. Okay. That's enough about the camel. And then having to do with the Fatiha, Prophet Muhammad said, regarding the Fatiha, وَمَا يُدْرِيكَ أَنَهَا رُقْيَةٌ. He said, don't you know that this is a ruqya? And this is in Hadith Sahih Bukhari. Let me just tell you what it is before we overstay our welcome. The ruqya is a prayer where you put your hands either on yourself. You can do it for yourself. If you have a headache, you can just put your hand on your head. Or like this. I used to do it all the time when I had a toothache, and it works. On your stomach, on your heart, whatever. And here's how it goes. First, of course, you say Bismillah. First, you say the Fatiha. Then you say Bismillah. Then you say, أعوذ بالله وقدرته من شر ما أجد أو أحاذر. You're saying, I seek refuge in Allah and His power from the evil that I find or I fear I'll find. Now, this is very deep. Because as you know, there are things called psychosomatic illnesses where a person can convince themselves they're sick and they're not really sick. It has to do with an unsettled mind. And I'm not an expert on any of this, but I shouldn't even say anything. I'm not a medical person, but a lot of things you're imagining, and it's waswasa is what it is. So you say this 7 times. And if you're saying it for someone else, you have your hand and you ask permission to, and if it's on yourself, you do it for yourself. Now, I grew up Catholic, and we did know about something called laying on of hands. Now, nobody did it in the Catholic Church anymore because they told you it was Middle Ages stuff. Well, no, it was Islamic stuff. And that's why they didn't want you to do it, because there was so much going on from Islam that they did, and then they stopped when they got in touch with Muslim world because they wanted to have their turf and they didn't want anyone else interfering in their priestly duties. And we'll get a lot more of this in the History Channel. Okay. Now, to make sure, we're going to go over. I'm going to try and condense this, because sometimes when I get too much into it, I go over, and I don't like that because I know you don't like that. So, what is tamaa'im? Tamaa'im is shayan yu'alaqa ala al-awlad, something you put on children. Yataquna bihi al-ayn, taqiyya, you know, it's to like a prevention from the evil eye. And he says it's shirk if you believe that. لأن الشرع لم يجعلها, you can't find this in Sharia Islamiyah, سببا تتقي به العين. There's nothing about preventing ayn like this. وإذا كان الإنسان يلبس ابنائه ملابس, anything like this. And then he says, what are they doing? رثة وبالية خوفا من العين. He's saying when people keep their kids in dirty poo-poo diapers or wet pee-pee diapers because they're afraid of the ayn, so they make the kid disgusting. He's saying it is wrong. He said, فَهَذَا جَائِزٌ, no. الظاهر أنه لا بأس به. He said it seems it might be okay لأنه لم يفعل شيئا وإنه ترك شيئا وهو تحسيس. He's going on very wordy by saying, what's the big deal? You know, I mean, well, here's the big deal. The angels stay away from bad smells. We know that. That's a hadith. You know what else they do besides making their kids grubby? They dress the little baby boys, toddler boys too, cute boys, like girls. Because people love boys and they want boys. So if you have a super cute little boy, you're going to dress him up like the girl so that nobody will give the ayn and your son will get sick and die. These are some of the things that they actually believe in, and this is completely forbidden. And he's saying that there is some differences among all of these things with the ulama. For instance, أما الخط فهي أوراق من القرآن تجمع وتوضع في جلدة. Oh, I saw this with my own eyes, I'm telling you. ويخط عليها ويلبسه الطفل على يده أو رقبته. They either put it like on his hand on a bracelet or on his neck. خلاف. The ulama يختلف. But let me tell you what I saw. The first year I was in Egypt, I was riding they have these cute little like mini buses, microbuses. I don't even know the difference, but some of them only take like 12 people. Others will take 15. They're local, you know, to go around locally. And of course, someone like me is not supposed to ride them because blah, blah, blah. I love riding them. It's fun. When you grow up hopping on and off buses and subways and you're American, you don't have this stratosphere, whatever you want to call it. It's like, oh, you don't ride the microbuses with the common people. You're going to get fleas on you. I never got a flea on me. I never smelled any bad smell on them. You people have to just... I digress. Every country has its own traditions. My husband didn't like it at all. You know, but he knew he couldn't really do anything because I'm American. And I don't go for chauffeurs. I'll take taxis if it's crowded or I really need to hurry up or something. But I love the buses and the train and the subway there was another thing called tuk-tuk. Everyone knows it now because it's on the internet. The tuk-tuk, this little like a tricycle, and 2 people can fit in it, and they go crazy, and it's just fun. I still love the tuk-tuk. Do you know none of these people? Do you think a person from my husband's family is going to ride a tuk-tuk? You see, the traditions, you have to be careful when you marry outside your culture, because the traditions will be stronger than the religion. I used to sit in the garden near my house on the ground and chat with my neighbor and sometimes with the maids. Oh, no. Oh, no. I got in big trouble for that. You were seen by one of the families sitting on the ground. And please, the ground is beautiful. The area was super clean, grassy, nice. No, you just don't do that. Okay. You don't have to do that. Okay, so now I'm going to tell you what I saw with my eyes. I was riding one of those little mini buses, happily riding it. But a woman came on, and she had like a 6-month-old baby. And you never know if they're boys or girls, but the baby was sitting in her lap, and she sat right in front of me. And you know how little babies, when they're very young, they don't have much hair. They have like a little tuft, we call it, like... The mom will gather it all and then, pretend that there's hair there, but there's hardly not. And she gathered the hair, and it was tied with something. I said, what's it tied with? And then it had this tiny little, like a leather pouch, exactly what he's describing here. And guess what it was holding on? It was holding on to the little baby's hair with gum. So obviously this lady was poor and she couldn't afford to get any of these, what we call tawk in Arabic. She didn't have like mini elastics that you can use for thin baby hair. So she stuck it on with gum. And she sat in front of me with this little baby, and I kept staring at the baby. And I'm thinking, what is going on? What is so important in this tiny little leather pouch? The pouch was like my baby fingernail. That's how small it was. And I'm thinking, what is going on? When I went home, I asked my neighbor, and she said, don't pay any attention to that. The poor people do that. And I said, what is it? What is stuck on a baby's hair with gum? We go crazy in America if the baby sticks gum in her hair, and we cut it all off. She said, it's something they believe in. They go to this sheikh. Of course, he would be a dishonest sheikh. And they give him money, and they say, write something to ward off evil from my child. So the dishonest sheikh will write something and then fold it up, fold it, and stick it in this tiny, tiny leather pouch to make it seem legitimate and worth something because it's in a tiny leather pouch. I said, well, why don't they try to teach her? There were a lot of women on that minibus. Why didn't they say to her, honey, get the gum out of your baby's hair? She laughed. She said, good luck with that. Well, preparing this lesson yesterday, I was speaking to a friend of mine here, and she has lived here for 22 years. She's from Morocco, and they do the same stuff in Morocco. It's all over North Africa. It's all over the Arabs. She said, oh, you'll never get rid of that. And I said, what do you mean? She said, because they've been doing it from time immemorial, and they like it. I said, it's not important if they like it or not. It's haram, these things, to think. Don't you know, Kul a'udhu bi rabbi nas, Kul a'udhu bi rabbil falaq? Prophet Muhammad said, if you fear for your children, you just read on them every night, and you do this on their chests, and you say the 2 surah, Nas and Falaq. Prevent you from any harm. She said, well, no. I mean, that's the religion. It's not promoted. What? It's not promoted? Of course it's not promoted, because the people will be normal. And then they won't be afraid of everything. And then they might speak out. Oh, no speaking out. Give your measly pennies that you can collect to the worst man in town, who's like magician, but that's not really the right word. They call him Dajjal. Dajjal al-Sha'wida is what it's called, and it means lying, cheating, like magicians that make people believe things that aren't true. What time is it? It's 24 minutes. Should I just finish this and then just make it a half an hour, and then there's just so many things, but they're all regarding the same thing. Let's just give you a hadith right here. One Abdullah bin Uqayn marfu'an man ta'alaqa shay'an wukila alayh. Allah is saying here that anyone who ties something on themselves thinking it's going to prevent something, Allah will allow him to depend on that thing, which has no power, and he shouldn't be doing that. There's another form of something called the tuala, which is something that's hung, and some people hang it on their husband and they hang it on their wife, and it's the same thing. It's supposed to be, let's read it. Shayan yu'alaquna ala zawj yaz'amuna annahu yuhabbaba zawja illa zawjatiha. They think it's going to cause the spouse to love the other spouse. Either the man to the woman or the woman to the man. لِأَنَّهُ لَيْسَ بِسَبَبِ الشَّرْعِ. There's no reason for this. وَلَا قُدْرَ at all. So, he's saying, how about the dubla? How about the wedding ring? And he's telling you here that the wedding ring is a no-no for Muslims. But you will notice that all Muslims wear it now because they copy the West, and they're never going to stop it because most of them want to be just like America. So you have wedding rings everywhere, engagement rings everywhere. No way you're going to get rid of that. And they don't believe that Allah is enough. So he leaves them to their own resources, which is not helping them, as we know, as we can see. All right. I want to just read you a couple of more hadiths. More definitions. Okay, here we are. روى أحمد عن رويثع قال لي رسول الله. Prophet said to me, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, يا رفيع لعل الحياة ستطول بك. Perhaps you will grow old. فأخبر الناس عن من عقد لحيته. And you're going to hear people say that they would hang things and tie their beards. أو تقلد وتر, strings or whatever. Or they would make istinja with cow dung or bones. He said, you're going to hear about this. فَإِن مُحَمَّدًا بَرِيئًا مِنُّ. Muhammad has nothing to do with them. Let's talk about tying on their beards things. How many saw Pirates of the Caribbean? And Johnny Depp, when he did it, it became quite a fashion. This was 20 odd years ago. He was the pirate and he had cool clothes, and then he had this long goatee, we call it in America, and he had beads on it, and it was tied like in a braid. It's exactly what Prophet Muhammad was talking about right here. And it's not allowed. Okay, anything else that I have to say? Because as I told you, this is filled with definitions and very, very specific things having to do with mainly what the Arabs would do, because they specify camels a lot. But it's basically, here's something funny. Did you know the word for camel dung is called routh? Or Ruth. It's a Hebrew Jewish word for a very holy woman. Her name was Ruth. And my uncle married a woman named Ruth, and she was half Jewish. Okay, and we're talking about the bones here, and he's saying, let's talk about the bones. Ma'rifa wa innama tabara an-nabi. Prophet Muhammad said no, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Mimman istanji bihima, these bones. Li'ana routh. Of course, there's no tashkil here. There's no fatah, no dhamma. So do I know if it's Ruth or Rose? Alafaba'an, they eat it. The animals can eat this. Rawat the jinn, they can eat this. Wa'adama ta'amahum, and bones. These things you should leave for the jinn. يَجِدُونَهُ أَوْفَرْ مَا يَكُونُ لَحْمًا. He said they like it more than meat. They like these things more than meat. Okay, one more hadith. عن سعيد بن جبير قال من قطع تميمة من إنسان كان كعدل رقبة رواه وكيع. So that's the end of the hadith. Anyone who cuts something off of someone, it's like he has freed a slave. And another person called Ibrahim, كانوا يكرهون التماءم. They hated these things on the children. كلها. Also, من القرآن وغير القرآن. So they ask here, is it okay if we can hang things with Quran on it? Either on our bodies or on our wall or whatever. And his answer is no. You shouldn't. You should just be reading it instead of hanging it all over the place. Now we do have a hadith, and it is in Bukhari, where Prophet Muhammad says, La ruqya illa min ayn aw himma. There is no ruqya should be used except if you fear the ayn, the envy, or the himma or the humma, of course, once again, no tashkil. It means a fever, though. We know what it means. So, lakin, he says, as-sahih annahu yashmal ghayrihima. He says, the truth is, you can use it on anything. That's what the author says. لكن اختلف العلماء, of course, difference of opinion among the scholars. هل هي ذلك أم لا? Is this true or not? I have a lot of reservations about this ayn thing because, you know, in North Africa, they have this blue eye that they put everywhere, and that's also supposed to be preventing you from blue eyes. I don't know. You know, a lot of stuff sneaks into the religion, and people follow traditions for whatever reason they want to do. Most people don't believe. Allah told me that. Most people don't believe. They hate the truth. They are ungrateful. So I'm grateful that I got this book, and I hope that I can take it to where it ought to be, which is to everyone, because we all have some form of superstitions left over. You know, now they're reading palms now in America. This was something unheard of before. They're reading the tea leaves now. They're reading the tiff, they call it tiff. I mean, you know, Arabic coffee, you cook it on the stove, it's very thick, and you drink it in little cups. And then when you drink it, there's mud on the bottom. You know what they do? In America now, they take the cup, turn it upside down, look at the mud, and read your future from the mud. This book is not insignificant, but the rulers don't like it at all. Can you imagine if everyone woke up? Can you imagine if the Muslim world just woke up and stopped being afraid of everything? It doesn't take the Muslim world. It only takes a few believers. And only Allah knows who they are. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.